We're back here in the 10-0 pool trying to see what kind of explanation we can give today. We have a 1900 rated player from Italy challenging my pieces with his queenside activity. He's developed both his queen and his dark square bishop, and he's going to shove the kingside pawn. So king safety is not going to be a thing for this player. So we're probably going to just go ahead and focus on king safety. I'm thinking I may actually go queenside. I just want to see what piece he wants to put on the light squares over here, and if we're going to trade a bishop pair. I'm going to put a little indirect pressure on the B pawn should he decide to try to trade this dark square bishop. I want to be able to take it and then grab the queenside pawn. All right, so now this knight is suggesting that it's going to come here. I'm going to go ahead and allow the tempo. And see how we continue. I'm going to allow this. Okay, he comes in right away. Not sure where this knight is going afterwards. So I'm just going to slide over. Now we do have this pawn push and attack on the knight should I play b5 too quickly. So we do have to watch that. So I'll probably have to prep this with rook c8 first, or I might play bishop to e6 and challenge the knight a different direction. Let's see what his next move is. Now he might block. Okay, he's chosen to hey, I'm actually gonna attack this knight. I just realized that my queen is holding. So this is not as dangerous as it could have been. And now that his knight is blocking, this bishop intrusion into the position is no longer valid. I'm going to retreat my bishop here just to look at this square for his queen. I'm going to castle as quickly as I can, hopefully on the next move. We're on move 13. I like to tell my students, castle in the first 10 moves. We didn't quite make it, but he is not making it either unless he goes queenside, which some could argue he was threatening to do in the beginning at the outset. So his position kind of looks like a bomb went off in it. He's got all of these pawns moved. I'm gonna actually take the bishop, let him develop, and then castle. All right, so I'm assuming he's castling kingside with this last movement. Okay, he does castle kingside now. I'm just gonna tempo him. This is not actually threatening anything yet, but my idea is to play b4 and have a double attack on the d3 pawn. That's the idea behind this. And pawn push anyway, or I could play pawn push here. Which one of these pawns do I want to move? If I play d5, what does he do? I'm gonna try d5. I'm assuming he's gonna push here or push here. Those are the moves that would make sense to me. Okay, so he goes with that. So that means he's got to take with his bishop, right? And calmly retreating, attacking this, and threatening knight b4 as well. So I'm threatening knight d4 and knight b4 at the same time. Could be interesting. His queen is in an awkward position. So let's just see what happens. He doesn't have time to really grab this pawn because he would be losing the piece. So let me go ahead and be kind and alert him to the fact that this is a target. Put the bullseye on that piece and see what happens. Okay, he knows to move it now. All right, I'm going to grab my pawn. Knight takes. I might just simply play knight takes because we have another bullseye. Let's go ahead and bullseye this one. Then we'll put the skulls on this guy. We're really trolling our opponent right now. Okay, so he goes for this. Capture, capture. Pawn takes. Okay, we're going to indirectly attack his bishop. And if he retreats his bishop back, I'm going to play the other rook over to d8. I also have queen e6 with interest because of knight g5 and then possibly queen g4 attacking the g3 pawn and attacking the e4 pawn. Could be interesting. My knight is not undefended. Okay, so he does this. Here, all right, let's just calculate this. Queen here, followed by, followed by queen here. Just rook over. Let's just go with rook over. I mean, let's see if he defends. He probably needs to move his A rook. I think I see some tactics. The tactics are starting to warm up. If he plays this A rook, I might just push this pawn, trying to see if I can't loosen up the C pawn. And if he pushes past, rook takes bishop becomes interesting, because if rook captures rook, then we have this knight check. Oh, okay, so that's not actually dangerous. Takes bishop. Knight here. Let's just put the queen on this. He got out of the pin, guys. That was the whole point of this. And he got out with interest. He created another attack. Now he does have this knight move, which is a triple attack. That's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Let's see, queen here. I didn't mean to give him an extra tempo. I'm assuming he's going to play bishop takes knight now. Bishop takes bishop and queen takes pawn. It's going to be a problem, so I'm going to have to actually fork him. I'm going to have to fork him in order to survive this, because I gave him an unnecessary tempo with knight g5. So instead of capturing the bishop when he plays bishop takes knight, I've got to play f6, forking both the knight and the bishop. Not the most desirable position, but we still have all the opportunity. Still have all the opportunity. We're still eyeing all the action on the dark diagonal here. See how it develops. Takes with the knight first. What a guy. All right, so if I play rook takes bishop, or I can play, rook takes bishop, he plays pawn. Check, I'm calculating. Rook takes bishop, gotta do this. There's no checks. So I'm assuming he's gonna play pawn takes rook. Might play rook here. Check. Okay, I have something in mind. All right, so he's not checking me, so I'm going to go down here and sacrifice my rook on his queen. Oh, this knight is still here. Actually, calculate that correctly. So I have to play knight takes knight now. Queen takes pawn. And then I have queen takes queen. Queen check here. Oh, he didn't do it. Okay. So queen takes pawn. I'm not being mated. This is not mate. This queen is under attack. It does have this check, but I can step out of the way. And he has to be very careful because I'm threatening mate myself. All right, so we get out of here. Now, is he giving me his queen? Because I am threatening mate. And I also have queen takes pawn check if he decides to block with the rook. This knight is going to be sleeping with the fishes. The rook is also under attack. Not so sure that this was the best plan of action for him. We're threatening to get our material back, even though we've sacrificed 2 pieces. We're down 2 pieces at this point, but we do have a blistering attack on his king. He's got to play quite accurately. Okay, he gives the piece back. All right, we'll get this knight in a minute. We're going to check him first. Can this knight retreat anywhere? We're going to just take his rook and then take the knight. I think that's what we're doing. So let's just take the rook. If he takes the pawn, we're going to retreat here and attack this pawn. That's our idea. If he takes the bishop, we just take his knight. Okay, so he goes with this. I don't see any immediate attack. Also have to look at rook takes pawn. I mean, I'm trying to activate my bishop towards his king. I'm not even going to lie to you. Bishop takes both of these pawns. I wouldn't be mad. Not be mad at all. Okay, he goes with this. King here is a fork. Okay. Wait. King here, he checks me and forks me. King here checks me. I think I can go king here. Let's try king here. The only check is this. I mean, he does have this check, but I can still slide out the way. But the other check would have been egregious. All right, so we're attacking two pieces. That's a big problem in Little China. Big problem. Okay, he decides to hold that. So now still has a check here. I'm gonna just actually play rook takes pawn. Just grab some material. Grab some material. I'm expecting knight check, which is not good for him. And his rook can't go anywhere. His knight really can't go anywhere. So he's kind of in a situation. It's kind of, okay, he goes with this check. So now his rook is under attack, right? His pawn is under attack. What is he going to do? Asking for a friend. Retreats. Okay, he's got this little idea. Should I grab the pawn? Grabbing it. I mean, if you check me, I'm just going to attack both pieces at the same time. Or maybe I go, okay, he didn't do it. So check and take. Attack his knight will get forked. Pawn. I mean, he is on this. I move my king first. My king first. I'm calculating. My king first. Got that check. I'm going to try this. I don't mind him blocking the pawn. That's what I'm hoping to see. Okay, that's great. I'm happy with that move. So now I don't have to worry about this rook grabbing my B pawn. And if he moves his rook, I can snack on this pawn. All right, so we're going to go attack two pieces at the same time. And, okay, he retreats. Is there any fork that I need to be aware of? I can push this pawn. And he checks me. That's not dangerous. All right, so we'll hold our pawn. Okay. Hit him with a light check. All right. Not even sure what he's up to. Bishop here. Or bishop here. I could actually go this way. It's a temple on the knight, okay? Here, a check. Have a check. Just gonna try this. Okay, slide out the way. No more checks with the knight because we're holding both of these squares. Okay, we're gonna advance our own pawn. He's got to move his rook out of the way of this pawn in order to be able to queen. I'm just gonna keep going. Capture, capture. I'm queening on a dart square and I control the dart squares. Just gonna keep going. Hit him with a check. guess who can come over here and defend this? So now I'm on this pawn, and my pawn can go. This is not the drones he's looking for. And my bishop is holding my pawn. All right, so there's no check. So what if I just threaten the queen? Okay, he's doing that. I take the pawn. I tickle his knight. I block. Okay. Let's see. Check separates him. I like to get closer. Okay, I have bishop takes knight, so I'm gonna do it. Bishop takes knight is GG, and that's it. So let's take a quick look at that game. Let me see if I can remove this bullseye. Come up. All right, in review, e4, common move, grabbing space in the center. You know, one of the moves that we recommend. I played c5, the Sicilian, attacking the center from the flank. Nothing new there. And he plays c3, which is known as the Alapin. There's a lot of different theoretical ways to respond against the Alapin. I just simply develop my knight and prepare to, you know, have some kind of recapture on the d4 square. He doesn't go to d4. He stops at d3. Could have been a mouse slip, not so sure. I'm not a fan of this structure. I'm not sure if it's book or not, but it doesn't look like it's dangerous by any stretch of the imagination. We continue. I play g6. I'm going to play bishop g7 and try to castle as quickly as possible. He develops his first minor piece, and it's a bishop attacking my loose pawn out here on c5. So I just calmly, you know, defend that pawn with pawn to d6, which also simultaneously allows my other bishop to be able to get in the game. Now, this is a little bit annoying. His queen and bishop battery, threatening to unplug my dark square bishop on h with a bishop to h6. He can't do it immediately because I'm controlling that square, but that's the threat. You know, once I move my knight, he's going to try to drop his bishop down there on h6. And then he reinforces this motif by playing h4. He says, okay, you castle kingside, and I'm going to open you up like a can of worms. So we cannot allow this pawn to come any closer. So we try to prevent that idea with h5. And by the way, h5 simultaneously allows us to develop our knight because now our rook and our bishop are covering the h6 square. He now plays g3, which suggests that he's going to get his bishop out somewhere on this diagonal. I think he eventually played bishop h3. So I'm just calmly developing my bishop. I probably should have just put my knight out here. This was really just trying to see what he was going to do with his light squares. I wasn't sure. And he does play bishop g2. Yeah, bishop g2, nothing to see here. Now I'm tickling him on the other side of the board with the idea of if I castle and he plays bishop h6, I want to be able to capture that bishop and then play after queen takes bishop, queen takes b2. So he puts the knight here saying, hey, I'm just going to kick your queen off of the square. I develop my knight. He kicks my queen. I slide over with the idea of building up a new attack on this backwards d pawn. So we continue. He slides over. Weird move. Let me just look at this for a second. Why did he play this? I guess he was forecasting that he did want to put his knight there. Push this pawn. His knight doesn't have any forward squares, so he can only go back here. I guess that's what he was worried about. All right, so retreats. I put my rook on c8 because we like to face off pieces. We can open up the c file and look very closely at his queen. Excuse me. He attacks our bishop. Obviously, we're not going forward with them and not stopping here. So we really have only two choices, and that's e6 and d7. I chose e6 because it does slow down access to one square on the white side of the board. Now he challenges my bishop. We just simply capture. I castle, and he castles. So now king safety comes up, and I guess this was the moral of the story. We look very closely at his king, and we have a really strange situation over here with these pieces. I don't know that any of these pieces are happy. In fact, this piece is not happy. The only pieces that we might argue that are happy are the rooks. All of these other pieces are grossly suspect. So let's go ahead and try to get him to create some kind of weakness by pushing a pawn. He pushes another pawn, so now he only has one pawn that hasn't been moved. The great pawn, I don't know what we want to call it, lurch or something. We challenge, and with the expectation that he's going to push on our knight, and he does. Capture, exposing the queen if he takes with the pawn. Captures with the bishop. Come back and tickle the bishop. Bishop moves again. Grab our pawn. He takes capture, capture. A lot of captures going on, and then we return with our knight. This pawn is loose, by the way. Why did I leave this pawn loose? What was my idea? Oh, no. This pawn should not be loose. I think that was an inaccuracy. All right, but he doesn't do anything about it. He returns. I try to prep the rook takes bishop idea because the pawn is pinned to the queen. He slides out of the way, and this is where I start to get into a little bit of trouble. I probably should have just returned my rook to f8 in hindsight, but I didn't do it. I wanted to try to get closer to his king with more pieces. That was unfortunate because I gave him this free tempo, really opening up the position. He's been wanting to attack my king the whole game, and this is the first real opportunity he has to do this. And I don't want to say desperately, but I understand the power of this attack. Knight takes knight leads to mate, by the way. So knight takes knight, queen takes bishop, king steps anywhere, and then queen takes as mate. So I can't do that. And I saw that during the game. So this is why I just grabbed the bishop. And I'm saying, let me try to remove one of the checkmating pieces. All right. So here in my math that I was thinking, my calculation, for some reason, I saw in my head that this square would be open and that my knight would be gone. That's why I sacrificed this rook, because I wanted to do, let's just go closer. I wanted to do this with the idea of queen takes pawn check, queen returns, and I thought I was going to have bishop takes pawn check, and that kind of forces the king over to the light squares, and I was going to grab another pawn. That was the idea that I had in mind. But you know, my brain was a little cloudy, and I didn't realize that, wait a minute, you know, this diagonal did not actually open up. So this rook sacrifice is actually faulty. And he doesn't do anything about it. He does attack my piece, and I'm trying to say to him, wait, I think I can survive. Your knight and queen are not mating me by themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the pawn and threaten checkmate myself. I feel like if I'm able to get to this square, it could be interesting. So he checks me. I get out the way. My queen is holding this square, and it's also threatening checkmate. This is a big problem for him. And I'm also threatening queen takes pawn check. And if his rook is not on the back rank, that's another piece that's going to be hanging. And we'll also be picking up the knight. So there's just a lot of problems in this position. This is why he decided just to simply trade the queens. And here I said, I don't have to grab the knight. Grabbing the knight is not necessary. I can hit him with an in-between move and try to get my material back. Bad arrow. Try to get my material back. And that's what I did. Bishop check, forking the king and the rook. And, you know, simultaneously maintaining an attack on his knight. So we grab our piece. Here he chose to grab the pawn. He could have easily grabbed this bishop, and I would have turned this pawn into a menace. But he correctly, in my estimation, took the pawn, and now he's up 1 point. So I retreat my bishop, aiming at his pawn because the king cannot cross this line, and I'm going to try to maintain this line with my rook so that his king can never get involved. So he checks me. It had to be very careful here because already the king is in a box. These are squares that the king doesn't have access to. And if I go the wrong direction, say for example, if I would have went here, knight check, king here, knight takes bishop, holding the rook, that would have been very annoying. I would have dropped a piece, and that would have been good enough to end the game. So I did see that and said, wait a minute, the only square that I actually can go to is here. So I play king h6, and now on knight f5 check, I can now approach the two pieces, which is what we did. We approach. He's got to try to defend these pieces. He has to stay, his rook has to stay on the knight, so he slides over. I can't access the an attack on the rook, So we take this opportunity to just grab something because his rook can't leave and his knight really can't leave because we're also attacking a pawn. So we're grabbing one pawn right there. He does hit me with a little check, but again, we attack his rook. He can't check me again, by the way, because his rook would be hanging. So he moves the rook out of the way with a tempo, forking my bishop and my pawn. I chose to grab this pawn. I was thinking that he might check me here, and let's just look at that. On check here, I fork him possibly. He could check me. I just step out the way. If he ever takes this, rook check, and I just keep going. Maybe not there. Maybe I go here to hold my pawn. He grabs a pawn, and then I try to queen this one because I can get this pawn without him being able to defend it. His rook is not in time, and I will have two connected pass pawns. That should be enough to win the game. So that's what I was kind of expecting. Didn't happen. So we go back to the actual game. He just chose to grab the pawn. We get this check. I step my king here, deliberately provoking the knight check because I wanted to cut off communication from the other pawn. I don't want to get into a situation where we're both playing with one pawn, bishop and rook and knight. So that's the idea behind this. I'm not worried about check here because this pawn is protected by my rook. All I'm trying to do is keep this pawn on the board as long as possible. Two pawns do beat a rook. Two connected pawns beat a one pawn. So again, same motif. We're forking him. He's got to watch both pieces. And now I save my pawn by putting his brother with him. He attacks my rook. Here I decide to go ahead and hit him with a lightweight check because it's time to get our bishop in an offensive position. So this is what we do. We slide out the way. We're expecting a check here, and he does, and we slide over. Our whole mission is to get everybody swarming on this side of the board to beat this pawn. Once we beat this pawn up, we should be able to win the game without a whole lot of effort. So he goes and runs his pawn in. I'm just going to keep going. I don't see any problems here. Just keep going. I know that my bishop is watching the square. So when I do take this check, I'm going to be able to slide over, hold the mating square, and still defend my pawn. So that's what happens. Now we had another move. I guess I could have played bishop here. He checks me though, and that would have been annoying. There's probably a way to win this. Oh, I can't. I see what's going on. I see what's going on. If I move my bishop, he's going to check and then queen. I see. Oh, so I had to be a little bit more careful than I realized. All right, so I just pushed it, whatever. And grab. Cutting off this check, not worried about this check. See what he does. He checks me. I just close the gap. He's got to be careful. He's got both his pieces on the dark squares, which favors my piece. Checking him because I know he doesn't want to come this direction. If he goes this direction, he's going to be in trouble. So separating the king from the other pieces, I got to be a fan. I walk up with the idea of being able to try to squeeze his pieces again with the king. And now this is just simply dropping material. Now, by the way, if I take this with the rook, it's a draw. Okay, you cannot checkmate with a bishop and a king, for those who might not know. So I have to take this with the bishop. Okay, so if he takes this way, a rook and king can checkmate. And that's the summary and the recap. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and twitch.tv/chesscoachnet. We'll see you guys on the other side.